The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. This is Philip Lee from TIC, and welcome to attending our webinar. And today we are going to talk about operation support. I want to thank all of you for attending. Some of my old friends here. A shout out to Bill, to Ryan, to Matt, and to other people that are participating in this. So I hope you will find this presentation productive. Just a little housekeeping, so you'll be all kept on mute. If you have any questions, please feel free to enter into the questions dialog, and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. The presentation should be around 35-40 minutes, and we should be able to wrap it up about a little less than an hour. Okay, so to start out with, we're going to talk about the NonStop operation support. The purpose of this particular presentation is to talk about what the need for getting more people trained on a NonStop. And we want to talk about in particular how do we approach that training and how do we provide the tools to help the people to adapt it easily. And the tool in particular we're going to talk about today is called TOP. And we'll show you how easy it is to use TOP for new users. But also, I would like to show you some cool stuff that TOP can provide for even experienced users. I think you'll find it interesting. Okay, so let's get started. So I know all of you are very well versed in NonStop world, so let me tell you something you probably already know and agree. So first thing is NonStop is a great platform, and we have great people supporting the platform. So the good news is that all the customers, all the users I've worked with, they have a great support team in managing the NonStop system. The people are super technical, and they are very knowledgeable, and they're also multidisciplined. What do you mean by that? If you think about it, people in charge of NonStop system support has to deal with the database, has to do with the network, has to do with the application, has to do with connectivity, has to do with messaging, has to do with events. If you take a step and think about how it is in the Windows world, other platforms, usually you have different people taking on different things. You have a security department, network department, so forth. And whereas in the case of NonStop, you have one group of people supporting the whole platform. And NonStop support people are really, really good. And a lot of them are actually have been on job for many, many years to accumulate that knowledge. So that's the good news. The bad news is most of the experienced staff are near retirement. Right? I think that is part of the course. And so the question is, what can you do to replace the talent pool? I think that to a certain degree, there's something that not a lot of people are thinking about actively. And what we're trying to say is that you should be, because there's a challenge. There are not enough trained resources available on a NonStop. And the other challenge is that it's hard to get the certain education classes to schedule, and they're expensive. Unlike many, many years ago, you have different education centers in the East Coast, Central, and West Coast. Now, classes are provided differently, and they are differently scheduled and expensive. Right? So the question, how do you get more people trained on a NonStop? In many organizations, especially large enterprises that use NonStop, they actually have different support departments. And they usually have a corporate help desk or centralized support, and some of them are offshore. And so one of the goals a lot of people want is, how do we cross-train these people? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to get some of these folks to be able to understand the NonStop, be at least provide some level of support, and so we get these people trained faster. How do we do that? And one of the challenges is that it's NonStop hard to learn. Now, for those of us who have been, using NonStop for years or decades, we say, well, this is fine, it's not a problem. But for a new person, for a young person, dealing with a tackle, dealing with the green screen is a very foreign concept, right? So if you step back and just put in the head of a new person coming out of college, a new person coming from the Windows world, learning NonStop is difficult. So how do we address that problem? So is there a solution? And we believe the answer is yes. And we'd like to talk about as far as how do we do that. So first thing what we're saying is that in order to get people trained on NonStop platform, we have to think outside the box. We have to take a new, fresh perspective. We cannot do the way we did 20, 30, or 40 years ago. So 3 things I want to talk to you about is just-in-time training, training through analogy, and using GUI tool like TOP. So what do you mean by just-in-time training? So the old approach is what is known as just-in-case training. So all of you, if most of you, if not all of you, have gone through the tandem slash HP in the concepts and facilities, which used to be a 5-day course. And I call it just in case training because in those 5 days, we try to teach you everything, a little bit something about everything. And it's just too much information. So we'll start talking about anything from the pathway, safeguard, all the stuff that in this 5 days is too much information, not enough application. What do you mean by that? It's basically just sit to try to absorb, but you can't because if you don't use it, you lose it. And in fact, it's 5 days. It's just you're trying to be taught all this information just in case you didn't know it is not a good way to get trained. The new approach is just in time. What do you mean by that is you basically, first thing you have to have a plan as far as what do you want people to learn that associate with that the person's job they can apply immediately. You want the person to learn in chunks. You want the person to apply until they get to a certain level of fluency, they advance to the next level. And you just go learn, you want to apply and improve. And this allows people to get more productive faster and better knowledge retention. And this is pretty much what's going on for the past 10 years, 15 years. When you go to the internet, people get to learn different things by search, self-service, try it out, learn, go to the next step. So there's no reason why we cannot apply the same concept in a non-stop world. And I'm advocating that we should. Second part is training through analogy. So it's been proven over and over it's easier to learn something new based upon experience of something that one already knows, to use examples. So it is easier for a Windows person to learn nonstop by being provided an opportunity to compare with the Windows counterpart. Let me give you an example. So if someone comes to you and asks you what is nonstop, what is the answer you're going to give? What's the answer you're going to hear? If you go to the nonstop users group meetings, and if a young person come up to you and say, what is nonstop? I never heard of it. So you might hear something like this. You might hear the fact that, nonstop is a great platform, and it is scalable, it's high performance, it's nonstop, it's mirror disk, 5 fault tolerance, 99.99% of the time. To a person coming in from Windows, they said, huh? I don't understand. You haven't given me any information that helps me understand what a nonstop is. So let's try another method. So I'm advocating say, okay, you come from Windows world, so you are familiar with different servers. There's application server, FTP server, web server, directory server, print server, and database server. So you understand all those concepts, what they are. And we're going to map that to a Microsoft world, Windows world, with some names with it, like IIS, we have Tomcat, we have Active Directory, we have Windows Print Manager, we have SQL Server. So you're familiar with all that. And really in the nonstop world, we have the same thing, except we call them differently. We call them Pathway, we call them Safeguard, we call them Spooler, we call them Nonstop SQL. So the answer is nonstop is a network of servers, just like Windows servers or Linux servers. And you can run different applications like Java or C, and you have different internal services like SQL Server SQL database, web directory, and web server, and it has load balancer. So that's what a nonstop does. So I submit that it is allow the person to be able to understand easier what nonstop is if presented the right way with a new approach to the transfer information training and with the right tool. So what is the right tool? The right tool is a GUI tool. So again, I know most of us say, well, real men use tackle. We don't need no stinking GUI tools. So, and then I would say, okay, I understand that. You're comfortable with tackle, but what are you using on your computer, on your laptop computer, on your desktop? Do you use command prompt? Or do you use the GUI file explorer? I would challenge that probably most of us use the GUI Windows Explorer. And so the idea is that GUI is actually more productive, but if you get used to something, you get tied to it. But reality is that we all love to use the Windows Explorer as opposed to command.prompt. So it's not necessarily the fact that we think that the command by is more efficient, but it's what we're used to. So Some of the things, why do you want to use GUI? And these are the facts, right? Lower memory demands a user. That means because you get present a visual representation of what needs to happen and what needs to be done, and you have be able to better comprehension which goes where. You have a block this command on one side, you have the operation on the other side, you have icons and all that, and it is good, better consistency, easier to learn and to use. And that's the key thing, is easier to learn and use is one of the things for the new folks coming into the NonStop world. So you can present a green screen, a technical screen on top, and you get a screen on the bottom. Even though you may have never seen the screen on the bottom, but one could argue, say, a new person can probably figure out some of the things, what to do with the bottom screen with the green screen tackle on the top. And so GUI is extremely important for productivity, especially bringing new people. And so what we'll talk about is the tool in this session called TOP. TOP stands for the Operation Pack. It is a product that we partner with Conforti. And this is a great tool. And what I want to show you as far as how it can be helpful to NonStop operation. What makes TOP different? So there are different GUI products for NonStop. Some of you use MAMI, use Prognosis, you use the view and other stuff. One thing about TOP is TOP's focus is operation interface. It's a complete set of all the different components: communications, CPU, EMS, batch, path, all the stuff. Second part is that the user interface is very much like Windows. So the Windows UI allow people to get used to it much more quickly, as opposed to some of those all the other products has its own independent user interface. The third part is that the tool can be also a great collaboration tool between the experienced people and the newcomers. We'll talk more about that. So because the NonStop folks are always technical, I always like to throw out a technical slide to make sure that folks appreciate what's underneath the cover. What's underneath the cover is really sophisticated set of processes that manages the environment, that do a lot of great things. So the top is a Windows desktop client. It communicates with a gateway process called MIP. This is the gateway into the system. So this performs all the operations on the NonStop on behalf of the client. It uses SPI, use API. It can talk to the command interpreter, the tackles. It can also talk to OSS process, we will see. And the fact is that it on the top client can also interface with local Windows resources, which allows the top client to be able to do real cool things like being able to email, FTP, and stuff like that. Here's the thing I want to give you a preview, and which I'll come back to later. The nice thing about it is the fact that because all the top clients have to go through the MIP process, it allows us to provide additional layer of security, of permission, of access beyond Safeguard and Guardian. What that means is that if a person with a Guardian user ID can do certain things on the system, and the top client could access that, but you can configure that. If you use the top client, I will only allow you to do certain things. That's called, it's called profile management. Because of that, also it can also do other things like auditing. So suffice to say that it is a whole set of really sophisticated processes running on NonStop, in addition to a very sophisticated desktop client, which provides functions for you. Okay, so let's take a quick look at TOP. So again, this is a just example of a green screen, different commands in FUP. So if you look at that, if you're used to it, that's fine, but it can be very intimidating. Versus if you have a GUI, it makes things a lot more intuitive, allows people to be able to navigate on their own and so forth. So go back to the topics, how would we use a tool and use a training approach to help get people trained faster on the NonStop? So this is an example. What I said before was we advocate that what you need to do is define different level of content that you want different people to learn to use. So this case, I'm hypothetical. I said I want to have a level 1. Level 1 support person come in for the first week or the first 2 weeks. I want this person to be able to do certain things. I want the person to understand how is the system doing, working with the files, look at the programs, look at the print jobs and reports, look at system log, and that's what I want a person to do. So I'm going to walk this through as far as how a tool like TOP with the proper guidance to allow the person get productive and functional within a day. So how's the system using? So let me bring up the TOP right now. So this is the TOP client. And so different icons here. And you can also, just like a window explorer, you can make them small icons. You can make them list details. But for now, let's make them into large icons. Or I can also open up here. So this is a non-stop system I'm talking to. So to answer my question, how is the system doing? I can tell the person, say, you can click on the CPU. This shows you the status. It shows you the status. The CPU is up, CPU busy, CPU queue, basic information. Okay. And as a newcomer, I'll tell the person, say, well, the rule of thumb is that you need to be careful as far as when the CPU busy go beyond 50%. And more importantly, when you see a queue length over 2, that's a problem. That's when you need to report to someone there is some queuing problem over there. And also just keep an eye on memory. That's it. That's what you need to know. And you just point and click to see and what you want to look like. Right? So disk, likewise, I'm going to say as far as you want to look at the disk, you can click on this thing here that looks like a disk. It gives you a summary information, what the disks are, percentage, and so forth. And let me now show you one of the advantage of TOP across almost all the screens. When you have multi-column information, you can sort it by the column. You can just click on that. Now just sort it by which disk has the most space. You can double click it for ascending order, or you can actually do sorting multiple columns. So one thing, I wrote a blog about a power of sorting, which is something that is amazing that we don't think about. It's so much easier to be able to find things if we can sort based on the criteria that we want, right? So we can sort mostly by the volume, or we can sort by user space and so forth. So going back to the new person coming on board, I said, just look at it, keep an eye on the percentage. And for example, if you can sort any way you want to, when it goes to 80%, tell someone. So even without much training, I allow the person to be able to have a view of the system environment, disk environment, and little things like the icon allow a person to start relating the fact that these are different disks on the system. Right? So that's just the beginning. So that's the basic thing. But let's talk about really what the other things. The other things people talk about is like working with files. But before we do that, I want to introduce what I call a cheat sheet. So I put this together, say, this will go a long way to help people understand. On the left-hand side, this is a terminology of what the things on the Windows. What you call on task, we call it process. Disk, we call it volume, and so forth. And print manager, spooler, task scheduler is net badge. And this, I put just icons from TOP. So once you have this cheat sheet, this will go a long way in helping people understand. So that means that if I want to look at the disk file stuff, I can go look at this disk icon. I will go to spooler, that is for print manager. So let's go. So working with files, how do we work with files? So in the case, if you go to tackle, the chance of what you have to do FUP. And then if you want to edit file, you have to learn how to edit. God forbid you have to learn edit or T-edit, or if you're like me, go to XVS, which is worse, right? So for a new person, so I would show them and say, you know what? On the Windows File Explorer, you can click on it. That's what it should look like in the Files Explorer. On a NonStop, it's really not that different when you use TOP. That's what it looks like. So let's go to real time and see what that looks like. Let me bring up the TOP again. So in this case here, I would go to bring up top. I'll click on, let's try this. I will click on the disk, and it's different folders. So I will click on my folder, which is TIC Fill. Where's TIC Fill? There it is. Okay, so these are the different files. And again, let me bring up the effect. It's pretty similar to the layout in Windows Explorer. And by the way, there's some columns here that a Windows user may be confused, may not like, because it may confuse the person. So that's okay. I can right click and I can remove from the display anything that doesn't serve good purpose. And also, if the person says, I really prefer to have the size before right next to the file name, just drag and drop. So the flexibility of that is immense. Likewise, as I said before, which is the smallest file? Let's click. Which is the largest file? One of my favorite, of course, in the Windows world is look at the file last update, right? So just click on the last modifier. So again, without any training, the person can intuitively now know how to look at a file. And then there are descriptions. What the file is, 101 is edit file. And there's a program file. So what do you want to look at that file? If I ask a person in Windows how to look at it intuitively, the person probably say, let me double click on that. And that's how you look at the file. Now I have the file. And the nice thing about this is now the person can actually just type with the editor in top on the desktop. The person saves. The file has been saved back onto the system. The person does not have to know how to use any type of T-edit or anything. Let's see what else. What if you want to copy a file? So again, there are two ways you can do that. You can just drag and drop into TIC Fill 2. And that's it. So now I have a copy of the file in TIC Fill 2. Or I could also do this. I can copy and paste. I can paste it back to itself and see what happens if I paste it back to itself. And it said if the file already exists. So do you want a name? So I say bank 2. Right? So that's basically a drag and drop, copy and paste. Right? So go back to, so the idea is that now with the top, I already showed the person how to work with files on a NonStop. And you can point and click with the editor, and I'll talk some more about the editor later. Okay, and the other thing is, actually, let me show you this cool thing, if I can. Let me see, do you have one? Yeah, let's see, why not? So this file, this is not, this is not an edit file. You can actually also view structure file. You can just by point and click and you can view structure file. Right? Obviously, this is a dictionary file, which is not very valuable, but you have a data file, you can actually do that. And so if I want to get back to where I was before, by the way, so this is almost like a browser. I can go back to different locations. Right? So let me move on without, because there's a lot of things to cover. But I'm trying to show you for a new person. I just show the person intuitively how to do some of this stuff. What programs are running? Again, so I would give the person an analogy. If you have task manager, you can also have something like similar in the top world, except that instead of calling it a task, we call it process. And when you go to here, so what you would do is, you click on processes, and let me just do all, maybe easier. So again, I'm bringing up another screen, a lot of processes. So the idea is I would try to help the person understand, say, this is what looks like in the task manager. This is the name. In case this is the PIT, we have something similar. The user name, CPU utilization, and then a memory and a description. So I want to move the PIT next to it. I can do that also. So again, it allows the person to relate to how to do the function easily. So I hope you can start seeing the pattern. What I'm trying to show you is as far as the person can very quickly understand the basic and continue to explore on his own, her own. So viewing report and print jobs in the Windows world, there's something called print management. I'm not sure many of you actually play with it, but it really is almost exactly like the spooler. So I would introduce the person, say, go check out what print management does. It allows you to manage printers, manage jobs, manage the forms and drivers, things like that. And in the case of NonStop, you can do the same thing, and except we call it spooler, right? So I can go to click on this spooler. These are different spoolers, and this is concept. We're looking at the jobs, and can look at a job. And again, similar here, there's all the spooler jobs. So you can say, I'm looking for all the job by particular location. Guess what? You can click on it. This gives you by look. You can look at it by the date and time. You can do that. Sort it by pages. And then you find something, say, well, you know what? Let me take a look and see what is this data here. How do you look at that? Click. This is what's in the spooler job. You can also, you right click. Not only can you view it, you can print it, you can email it, you can save a copy to your desktop without having to do anything except just right click. And also, you can, if you have permission, you can delete the job, move the job, or copy the job. You can put it on hold, you can unlink it. If it's on hold, you can start it. Left click, right click, now you know what to do. Okay. System log. So again, what I'll try to explain to people is like, like the Windows, you have an event viewer where most of the messages you have absolutely no idea what it's talking about. Well, we have something similar. On the NonStop, we also have EMS. For a lot of times, there's so much stuff in there we don't know what it is talking about. but that's neither here nor there. But the concept is there is a EMS, and you can look at the stuff. And in the case of what we have here, so we look at EMS, and we look at this collector, right click, and we can look at events, and you can specify what to look at, start a certain point, and let's say I'm going to start right now. Let's see what we have. And then you could save it, you can stop it, you can do other stuff. Okay, so obviously the idea of trying to interpret the event messages takes a lot more training as far as how to deal with it. And if one were to do it, there's too much stuff in the EMS log. But the idea of how do you check something, you can also find, let me go back here. So you could, it allows you to do a find of any particular string in there easily. Okay, and then you can also filter it. Right? So it's just basically very intuitive. Even without knowing a lot about the event viewer, you should be able to understand what to do with it. Okay, so um, that's pretty much an example. Now, I just went through this quickly, but let's assume that I can sit down with a person, a new person, within a matter of an hour or two, and then the person can play with it for the rest of the day, and the person will be functional now. The person should be able to go back and do what I could call the level one. The person monitor whether jobs are running. If it's not running, starts it, what a file's there, and so forth. So, but in order for it successful, what we're advocating that the best thing to do is use this tool and have the current team pair up with the newcomers. So use it as a collaboration tool. So allow the person that is newcoming use something like this, and the experienced person to guide the person along. But the thing is like, well, what's in it for the experienced person? Do the new people have to suffer through using the GUI, or is this something really nice that the experienced person should enjoy also? The answer is the latter. Top has a lot of cool features that even the non-stop experienced people will like. So let's talk about some of the cool features. So number one, OSS. So if you active using OSS like ITB Web Server Java, or if you are a involuntary user of OSS, like because you SQL MX or because you have to use some other third party stuff like that, it's always a hassle trying to indoctrinate Guardian operation folks to use the OSS environment. But in the case of um, the using top, it becomes a lot easier. So we just click here, click on OSS. So you can click on this here. This shows you all the OSS processes, separate from Guardian processes. And you can look at what they are doing, right click, look at the properties. Things that you probably guessed just by playing around with that. So what else can you do? One of the major things people will always like to do is, how the heck do I edit a file on the in OSS? And people always scared, it's like, oh my goodness, I have to learn how to use VI. What I'm going to do with that, right? So if you, in the case of using, let's see, with the web server, let me try this here. If you are, let's say you have to configure HTTP configuration file, right? Click, just like what I showed you before, it's color coded. You could basically edit it and save it. It will save it back into OSS for you automatically. You can also copy and paste, just like with the Guardian file. You do not have to worry about CP or anything. You can rename all the stuff right from your click directly without having to deal with OSS commands. That's big, right? So this is an area even existing Guardian folks, a lot of them hate to do. Right? Compile and top. This is cool. I like to show this. This is neat. So what I can do is, I showed before that I can have a file, and I have a file, global file, source file. I click on that, and this is what I'll show you as far as the it understands the COBOL program is color coded. Isn't that neat? You can actually collapse stuff like that, so forth, right? And it color code all the functions. But I can also basically compile it. I can say I want to compile this program. Actually go up there, invoke compile, give a listing, and then basically here it shows me that I have two errors. Right. So I click on this error, right? What it does, it brings me to the line where the error is. So I can just get rid of that. Oh, I have to edit it first. Do it again. Come on. And then I can do this one. Click on this. I save it. Compile it. Zero error. I'm home free. So this is neat, right? So this is what, and this is using a tool that can also be extended to do other things. So that is a very, very nice feature. I think a lot of the developers will appreciate. Um, Control access nonstop. I alluded to that before. The idea is that you can specify, uh, even though the Guardian ID allow you to access certain things, you can block what the Guardian ID can do through top. Like for example, I have two sessions of top. This one is tic.fill, and this one here is super super. The one is super super. So if you go to tic.fill, when I click on volume, I can only look at certain things. That's because my ID is being associated with what I could do. So you can actually set up profiles that specify a user to be able to do certain things and not other things. And that's what's called profile. So, and let me, so I have a profile called level 1 operation and allows you to define what the person can do and cannot do. So it gives you additional layer of security because the top has to go through the MIP process. It allows you to do additional control. Okay, finding information quickly. Um, Again, very simple. The idea is because you can sort, you can find, you have a socket, you can point and click, find information to telnet, socket files, processes, you can sort stuff. Okay, and the other thing is this is available and all the stuff. Let's say, let's just give an example. This as an example. Uh, Anytime you have columns, you can right click and you can export this information to a spreadsheet. Right? So what that means is instead of trying to copy and paste whatever stuff, bam, I have this already right here. So a useful case in point is for those of us who deal with network communications, that's a big, big thing. Because if you're like me, sometimes you're trying to figure out as far as, my goodness, all the sockets connections we have, who are the people that are connected to it, and how do I get to it, and so forth. And it's just like go crazy trying to look at all the different. It's trying to load now. It's lots and lots of them, but I'll come back to here. So you can right click this, you can save that to a socket directly. Very, very nice. So you can export that. You can integrate with your own tools. You can integrate with your text editor. You can integrate with terminal emulators. There are a lot more features that I have not shown you yet, advanced features, which I think you'll find very, very beneficial. Come to our website. My good friend Matt Reese have captured some good videos, 3 or 4 sessions about advanced stuff you can do with it. Visit it. Each one is about 3 to 5 minutes. You can get the gist of what you can do with it that's better and faster to use and tackle. Right? And we're also going to schedule another webinar that gives you advanced features specific for people that are already experienced nonstop, why you should use top. Okay, so what have we talked about so far? So we talked about there's a need to start making sure there is enough people trained to continue to support nonstop. Operation support is very critical because you can have the best application, best platform in the world, but if you do not have people running to keep the lights on, you're gonna have a problem, right? So how do you get more people trained? You need to try to think of better ways and new ways to get people trained. And the way to do that is you want to have a new training methodology, you want to have a new tool, a new GUI tool, and what we're advocating, top is the right tool to do that. But in addition to training new people, it also allowed nonstop users, experienced nonstop users, to gain the benefit. So you have a team of people with both using the same tool, reaping the benefits. And besides being able to help you acquire this tool, we also can help you provide customized training and services help you make it more efficient, make you to be able to do a lot of things productively on a nonstop. So let's take some questions first. Again, take a couple of minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to put it into the question dialog box. There are a couple of them right now, so let me go through them. But meanwhile, think about it and see what kind of questions you have. One of the questions is pricing model. How's it priced? Well, first thing is I think the top price is very inexpensive, relatively speaking. There are two pricing model. One is based on seats. So, for example, if you have 5 operators, you can say I want 5 copies, 1 or 5 PCs, and they'll be tied to the 5 PCs, and they'll be able to access the system. The other choice is if you say I have a system, but I have many users. I want all the users to use that. In which case you acquire the license on a server or license system basis. In which case you have a limited number of users. So the right number for you is based upon number of users you want, and also number of systems you want access, and so that will allow us to recommend which pricing model is better for you. Okay, another question here as far as about the what does the audit looks like? What does audit do? Again, let me bring back to the diagram so that I can talk to that point. So one nice thing about the so because everything goes through the MIP process. So if you use top client, that you have the ability to turn on auditing. What audit does is route all the activities to EMS, so you can actually have a complete audit trail, audit log of all the things people have done on the system, right? And so which is pretty neat. I have a sample here. Let me bring it up. So this is a sample of showing that someone was logged on a super at this desktop, were actually doing editing to the spooler code file. Okay, and then starting the spooler, all this capture. And then there's another case. This is where my friend Matt Reese was doing some stuff in the spooler data. Thank goodness he was doing nothing mischievous, because I can see that he was actually helping setting up something, right? So you can see as far as this, by turning audit, it gives an additional layer of audit trail on the system that, without having to use keystroke logging, right? So let's see. Okay, another question about the compile. What other languages besides the COBOL compile? Let's go back to that. So let me close this. The actual COBOL compile, let me finish this. So this here, even with this screen here, I can right click, export that to the spreadsheet. So again, imagine how useful it is if you want to keep track of all the sockets open. Now you have it right in the spreadsheet at your fingertip. Right. So that's that. So in the setup option, what you can do is you can specify the different edit languages. And so you can actually specify color code these different ones available on the NonStop. It supports that. So COBOL, C, C++, right? TAL, TACL, and so forth. And then when the actual compile is this extensible thing, this COBOL here, what it is saying is that when I invoke COBOL, you specify what is the tool you want to run, what is the parameter, and so forth. So you can actually invoke this. You can build this set of tools as a compiling tool, allows you to create different things associated with an input file. So right now, this is COBOL. I can invoke it from an editor, but I can also do this, for example. I can actually position to a file. Oh, I don't want to do this. I say right click. I say go to tools, COBOL. So that's how I can trick the compiler against this file. So you can do that also instead of from the editor. You can do that as well. Okay. So there are many other different type of functions available. Even small things, we're running out of time, but I'm glad to show you in our advanced session. So for example, these are shortcuts. I can, for example, say this is something that I want to make available very easy. I can drag and drop here. Now it's my shortcut. I can also put in favorites, right? So favorites, that means I can just branch to go there directly, right? Things like that. So to summarize, we believe TOP is a wonderful tool. You can do a lot with it. We believe that is a great tool. Together with our service, can help bring new people up to speed on the nonstop quickly. And what we look for is your feedback. We'd like you to be able to test drive it, contact us. We'll help you with the proof of concept. You can set it up in less than an hour, probably like 30 minutes, and you can just play with it, right? And again, our goal is to continue to try to help users bring in more people trained on the nonstop to be productive, and also to help existing nonstop folks to be more productive with TOP via some of the advanced commands. Let's see, I have another question here. Let me see. Auditing is also nice ways to see what the command lines suggest for doing things, point and click, and then look at edit file. Good point. Yes, very good point. Very observant. So basically, here is this is the secret. Is the fact is that when you use the point and click on top to do certain things, and underneath will also show you some of the actual work underneath the cover. So what that allows you to do is, like, for example, once what I did was I used top to secure the use safeguard, because there is a safeguard. Let me see. There's a safeguard section in top. So I can go to safeguard. I can go to subvolume. I can do a new subvolume, and I can secure subvolume. And this, when I apply, actually the audit will also show the actual command in SafeCom to be used. I can save it to use that later. Yeah, good point. So actually, that's the additional stuff that what auditing provides for you. Good point. There's really lot of good things about TOP. One of the challenges, I would try not to overwhelm folks with too many things. But I want to focus the fact that it's a great tool for bringing someone on board quickly. It's a great tool for experienced folks to do more with the nonstop. Okay, I don't see any more questions. I thank all of you for joining the webinar today. I look forward to your feedback. And until next time, this is Phil signing off. Have a great day. Thank you.